Curiosity. Kill the rat. Curiosity. Kill the rat.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 4 of Curiosity Killed the Rat. I am
Oh my
Matt. I am the
gosh.
one who produces these sultry, dulcet, beautiful audio waves that are gracing your earbuds at this very moment.
Yeah, and I'm Kate, and I guess I bring the science. I don't know. I'm
You
a
bring the
neuroscientist.
science, the substance, and I put the sauce, the drizzle, the garnish.
And together it's a beautiful, I don't know, what meal is that? Like a hot dog?
I'd like to think that we're a little bit healthier and, more substantial and better for people's brains. We're brain food. We're a nice piece of fish at least. Like, come on.
All right, we're a
But
piece
I'm
of
sorry, I
fish.
cut you off. What are your credentials?
I don't know. I do something with brains and stuff, neuroscience, and I research them. The brains, that is, not the neuroscientists. I don't research that. My research.
I mean, would
Yeah.
that be a field, another field of science? What would you call the field of science that is the research of neuroscientists?
That's an interesting one.
Neuroscientology?
Well, like it depends. Possibly, yeah. I guess it depends what you're researching about them.
Yeah.
Because if you're researching their physiology, then you're still doing physiology, right? Depends what you're researching. If you're still researching their brains, you're still doing neuroscience. You just happen to be doing it on someone who understands what you're doing, which in some cases will throw the whole experiment. So you can't really do it. Anyway, that's not what we're gonna talk about today.
What are we going to talk about today?
Hypnosis.
Hypnosis.
Yeah.
I am floored. No, I knew we were going to talk about this today.
Cool. Thanks for the feigned surprise. No, but does it blow your mind? Like when I first said to you and I was like, hey, I want to do an episode on hypnotism. Like what first went through your mind? Were you like, hell yeah, that's a science topic? Or were you like, that's some mumbo jumbo shit? Like that does not belong on a science podcast. Or you're a believer,
Well,
like from the start.
Here's the thing. Hypnosis has been one of those things that I've always been on the fence about, and I still am on the fence about, because I think like in kind of early high school days and that sort of thing, I was really into Darren Brown and Darren Brown videos
yeah.
and those sorts of things, and I thought the stuff that he did was so flippin' cool.
Yeah.
So I really believed hypnosis was this thing. And then kind of in more recent times on reflection and seeing some other stuff, I'm kind of like, hold on a second. A lot of it is probably not real, but then I don't know. Maybe it is real. I honestly don't know. Hypnosis is one of those things where I just am sincerely clueless as to whether or not it's all fake pseudoscience or whether it's an actual legit thing. And the stuff that people like Darren Brown does is like legit.
Beautiful.
I just don't know.
This is going to be fun then, isn't it?
Oh, I'm going to have a lot of fun today.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Okay, I want to start out by saying when I began my research for this, I dead set did not believe it was real. I thought it was a bunch of bull crap. Because I've had someone has tried to hypnotize me and it didn't work. So I was like, obviously everyone else in the world is playing along. Turns out hypnotism or hypnotizability, God, how susceptible you are to being hypnotized, like sits on a bell curve, right? And there's 10 to 15% of the population that fall into this group of highly hypnotizable, and then there's like 1/5 of the population that are just like totally resistant to it, and the rest of the people kind of sit somewhere in between. I think I'm totally resistant because it just did not work for me. But like most people have at least a little bit of susceptibility to this. Like it is a real fucking thing.
What?
Right? Like, so I was floored. I was like, no, bullshit, like science. Give me the science. Where's the science? But like there are so many studies. So the thing is, it's definitely a real thing. It's definitely a real state of existence, and it's definitely possible to change people's behavior and sometimes physiology using the power of suggestion. Like that is a real thing. What being like in a state of being hypnotized actually is in terms of like, is it a completely altered state of consciousness, kind of like being
Like,
asleep?
is it
like, you know,
or is it like if you're under the influence of kind of like alcohol or substances or psychoactive things where you're physically in a different state of mind, or is it a Is it a more psychological thing?
See, this is where science is divided.
Okay.
And there's
Okay.
some people truly believe that like it's a different state of consciousness, and some people believe it's more just kind of like you psychologically playing along, like not faking it, you know, not consciously faking it or like knowingly faking it, but still kind of like, you know, it's a psychological phenomenon. Yeah, so we don't exactly know like what it is, and that's mainly because like neuroscientists, like we still have no idea what consciousness even is. So being able to like study whether something is an altered state of consciousness is like pretty much impossible when you don't know what you're studying, because like we know that there's neural correlates to consciousness, aka like brain activity when we think certain things in certain parts of the brain, but there's like this missing link that science still hasn't found, which is like what the fuck is consciousness. No clue. And so that's why we're kind of divided there. But what we do know is that like like I said, like it can actually be used as a thing to do. And so, you know, to give it a bit of history, like hypnosis had a bit of like a false start, for want of a better word, back in like the 18th century. And there was a guy, a German physician, a doctor, Dr. Franz Mesmer, which is where the term
I've never
mesmerize.
heard a more German name in my life, but
Dr. Franz
there you go.
Mesmer. Yeah, where
I
the
didn't
term
realize Mesmer came
mesmerized
from a name. I would have, I don't know, Mesmer has kind of like a sound similar to like, I don't know, memory. It just sounds like a brainy word.
Yeah,
Hypnosis
no.
is about the brain and mind alteringness. But
Yeah,
that's
no.
crazy
So
that comes
to
from
be
someone's name.
mesmerized comes from back in the day, back in the 18th century. This dude, he was a bit of a con man, and he eventually got discredited by science. But essentially, he had this miracle cure for like a whole host of medical problems, and he was going around the country like curing.
Feels like a snake oil
people.
salesman.
Yeah, except like the way his whole thing worked is you would get mesmerized, and because he had this theory, he said he had this theory of nature, whether he actually believed in it himself or whether he was, you know, a con, you know, it's debatable, but he said he had this theory of the world called animal magnetism. And so what he essentially believed is that there was this like invisible magnetic fluid that like flows through all living things, and that when that gets out of whack, that's when you get sick, and he can bring that back in tune with this, of course, invisible magnetic fluid that only he knew the secret to.
Right, of course. And then when we get in tune with the midi-chlorians that are within our body, they speak to the animal magnetism.
Right, and then
we have
force
telekinetic
healed.
powers, and you know,
and you're force healed,
Jedi are real. Yes,
exactly. But this is what but like the whole process of being mesmerized, like picture this, like you're sitting in like a dark room, like dim lights, ethereal music played on a glass harmonica. I can say words, but like a glass harmonica. Like,
damn.
This guy was fully into it, and then he would infuse them with this invisible magnetic fluid, and they would be miraculously cured. And like, although like Mesmer was eventually discredited by science because they found out that, surprise, surprise, a magical magnetic liquid that cures everything just isn't fucking real. Like, that's not a thing.
Or at
That's
the very
not
least,
how
not
magnets work.
provable by science.
Sure. Something like that. Look, he got scientifically discredited for his animal magnetism stuff. But the whole, you know, people were getting better with his treatment. So like, what the fuck was going on? And like, no one really gave much of like a thought to this concept of being like in a therapeutic trance for like ages until... Sorry, go.
Was the idea of a placebo around back then? Was that an accepted notion of a way that could treat things?
Definitely not.
What sort of year was all this happening again?
Oh, this is back in like the 18th century.
18th century. Oh, okay.
Knowledge of the placebo effect is a much more recent phenomenon.
Bit more like 20th century kind of discovery.
I think so. I can't confirm what year exactly that became theorized, but yeah. Essentially, they were like, nah, he's a fraud. Throw him away. Everyone who got better must have been faking it or some shit.
Right.
And then along comes the year 1842. Enter Dr. James Braid. He's an English ophthalmologist, so an eye doctor.
Is an ophthalmologist different to an optometrist?
Yes, but I'm not entirely sure why. I'm pretty sure an ophthalmologist deals more with like eye diseases, and an
Right.
optometrist deals with like sight issues that are more just
Okay.
like your lens being skewed. I think I could be wrong though, but I think that's the difference.
All right.
But essentially, he was an eye doctor, and what he did is he like stared. It's really creepy to think about it, but he stared at people really, really intently and claimed that he would put them into these trances by staring at them intently. And he was the one that actually coined the term hypnosis, because he thought that when people went into this like trance-like state, that they were similar to being asleep. And like we've all seen stage hypnotism and stuff. Like it looks like people are asleep. But like it's not sleep at all. What actually happens when you're in this like trance-like state, which is like a real thing, is you're producing, because we know this because we can measure the electrical current of the brain, right? And electrical activity that's going on in the brain. And there are different sizes of brain waves that you have different brain waves when you're sleeping versus when you're awake versus when you're like really focused on something. And so delta waves are these like when you're hyper focused on something, like when you're reading a book and you get kind of lost in it and the rest of the world goes away, or you just like intensely.
Delta wave sounds like a sick EDM festival.
Delta waves. Yeah. But
But no,
so when
that's
people
the
are in this trance, like,
concentration wave.
yeah, they're kind of, it's like they're really concentrated. But anyway, the point is like James Braid knew none of this. In fact, he actually had no clue whatsoever how it worked, this whole trance thing that he was doing to people. He was just like, I'm putting people in these like trances because I'm staring at them all intently.
I just got that blue steel nailed, fam. Like, he was working on...
Yeah, and he was legitimately able to hypnotize people by like blue stealing them. That's what he was doing.
Oh, man.
And like this is where hypnosis was then adopted by like stage magicians and stuff, who would put people into this trance by like dangling watches. Like we all know the drill.
The classic spirally spinny boy and you are getting sleepy and
you can feel
stuff
your
like that.
eyelids. Yeah,
you
stuff
did
like
mention that he coined the term hypnosis from this. What about the word hypnosis means? Sleepy.
Yeah,
trancey.
it's from the ancient Greek, or the Greek for to sleep is like hypnos.
Okay,
so that's why it's hypnosis. Yeah,
Cool.
sorry.
That's fine.
But yeah, that's why he did that. And then, in the 19th century as well, so like hypnotism or hypnosis and putting people in this like trance like state and using the power of, suggestibility was used in medicine as well. Like in the 19th century, there are records of doctors in India actually using hypnosis for anesthesia. Like for even like for like limb amputation, they fully
Holy
would just
crap.
And actually,
What?
you can go to YouTube, because I did this. I went down a YouTube rabbit hole and I watched some BBC documentary on hypnosis and stuff. And you can watch. They still like some people do it today. And there's this lady you can watch getting her tooth extracted, and they like just hypnotize her and put her under and then extract her tooth, and she doesn't feel a thing because they use it as like an analgesic.
That is crazy.
So, but it's like it's fallen out of favor in like modern
Yeah.
medicine, like when
For
anesthetic.
ethical
Well,
reasons
and when
and-
not ethical reasons, because like it works, but when anesthetic drugs were, it doesn't work in everyone. That's the thing. It works in this very, very small subset of the population. And when anesthetic drugs were invented, they work in everyone. So I guess like ethics in that sense, yes, like it definitely, it's fallen out of favor. But like it does work. It is real in these people. Do you want to know why?
I do. If I may, I have a hypothesis as to why, right? What my guess would be, just based on hearing that, or at least maybe not the whole reason, but a thing that would contribute to it. Placebo is what I would say, or like would be a big factor of it. Like, are you more susceptible to hypnosis if you believe hypnosis works? People like you and I who are more inclined to be like, that probably doesn't work, therefore we're more closed off to it, more resistant to it. We don't accept it into our hearts, as it were, and therefore it just doesn't work on us.
Okay, so yes, but also no.
Okay.
Yes, but also no. So,
Sure.
You definitely have to believe it's going to work for it.
I do believe in hypnosis. I do.
Yes. And if you don't believe it's going to work, then it doesn't work. And you can't be made to do anything that you don't want to do in like, you know, within yourself. You can't be made, you know, so like stage hypnotists who pull people up and get them to do embarrassing things. Like if you're going to volunteer for something like that, you're likely a performer, sort of performative personality anyway, right? So there's going to be a part of you that doesn't mind doing stuff like that. And so like, yeah, you have to believe it's going to work to sit into it. Placebo, in terms of the definition of like a placebo therapy, like a sugar pill or a fake cream, no, it is different. It's a similar sort of concept, but they did this study that was really cool where they literally tested placebo versus hypnosis as an analgesic, so as like a pain number. And so what they did is they had, in the placebo group, they gave them this like fake cream that was like, you know, they were told was an analgesic, local anesthetic cream, and they wouldn't feel anything during the procedure. And then they had the hypnosis group where they hypnotized them, put them under, told them that they weren't going to feel any pain during the procedure. And then I think it was like a little hot thing or a little small electric shock or something. I can't remember. Anyway, both like placebo and hypnosis worked compared to controls. However, when they put their like brains under like functional fMRI, or maybe they used EEG, I don't remember. They used some kind of brain imaging, and what they found was that different parts of the brain were actually lighting up in this placebo group versus this hypnosis group. Both different parts of the like frontal cortex, so still to do with our like thinking and our attention, and it might be via a similar sort of downstream mechanism in terms of like attentional, like drawing your attention away from the pain and hyper focusing on something else. Because like that's a real thing. I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, it was a different part of the brain for placebo and for the hypnosis. So it's not working via placebo, but definitely you kind of, a big part of what makes hypnosis work is making the person believe that hypnosis works. And this is where it becomes slightly not science. And this is where in stage hypnosis, this is not so much hypnotherapy, but like in stage hypnosis, I went down a rabbit hole of watching a whole bunch of YouTube videos on this, and I got super excited.
I'm
there's
feeding off your excitement.
Yeah, there's lots of little tricks that help people believe that they are hypnotized. I haven't even gotten to explain how this works yet, but you know what we're going to do?
It's like suspense and build up.
Yeah.
Because that is a big part of like stage shows and stage magic anyway, is like the weird susceptibility and like kind of misdirection, I guess, as well is a big part of it. Yeah.
So
I've watched a lot of Penn and Teller.
Yes. Well, it's one of these things which I'll come to explain in a second how it's actually working. But essentially the trick is you want the person that you're hypnotizing to believe that they are being hypnotized, and the more they believe it, the deeper they fall into the hypnosis. Because it's all about, you know, attentional direction. So I'm gonna try one on you. I'm just gonna try a quick little. If this doesn't work, it's gonna be embarrassing.
Are you gonna try hypnotizing me? Is that what?
Not fully hypnotizing you, but just one of these little tricks that might make you think that you were hypnotized, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So first of all, I just like, you know, relax. Take a deep breath in and just kind of sink into your chair. You can shut your eyes perhaps if you want. You know, you just want to be comfortable. And I want you to notice that under your feet, you are feeling a tingle. Right at the bottom of your feet, you know, maybe going back and forth. I want you to imagine and just become aware of it. Maybe it's under the right side. Maybe it's a little more under the left side. Maybe you're feeling it under both feet, but there's just this very gentle tingle at the bottom of your feet. Do you feel a tingle?
No.
No? Fuck. I'm obviously not as good at it as the guy on YouTube. I haven't practiced with people, but essentially it's like the, you know, you can open your eyes now.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's like the whole, like, you're not aware that you can see your nose until someone says, hey, you can see your nose. And then suddenly you're fucking aware that, like, right in front of you, you can see your nose. Whereas in your general day-to-day vision, your nose doesn't get in the way. But now that I've brought your attention to the fact that you can see your nose, you can fucking see your nose.
Yeah.
It's meant to be the same thing with the foot tingle. Apparently it's like, it's, you know, Except you're meant to do it, you're meant to be like really confident and calm, and like you want the person to be like really relaxed and really, really focused. And it's
Well,
this thing, and it's this thing it's there all the time, but you draw their focus to it and they're like, oh, it's just appeared. Like you can do a similar one with like the back of your neck where you're like, just take the time to think about the back of your neck. You should feel this like slight warmth crawling across the back of your neck, getting slightly warmer because like
I mean, I already felt this warmth on my neck because it's fucking like 38 degrees in here.
Well,
at
that's
the
why
moment.
I went with a tingle example instead of the warm neck
Yes.
example because you're already warm. But generally, like the back of the neck is a really warm place anyway, right? Because running up and down the neck, there are a lot of these, like there are heaps of nerves because it's the main connection to your brain. So it generates a lot of warmth. We're just pretty much desensitized to it, and so we just don't notice it. But if you can
Okay.
get someone to like really, really relax and follow your voice and draw their attention to it, they suddenly go, oh, I'm aware of this thing. Even though it's been there the whole time, they're suddenly aware of it. But if they're kind of trapped in this state, then they're like, oh, I must be hypnotized. All right, I've got one more that I
Okay,
want you to
okay.
try.
Sure.
All
I
right.
get back into my relax, eyes closey mick
Well,
state.
okay, this one I'm not even gonna try pretend.
Okay.
Lock your hands together, interlock your fingers in front of you, and then just squeeze your palms together as tight as you can. Okay. Right now, if I was to tell you to pull them apart from each other, you could do that, right? Like pretty fucking easily. So just like pull them apart. Yeah, cool, done. Now pop your what's the word? Like outturn your palms so that
Oh,
they're
like stick them out.
Yeah.
Kind of like you're flexing your fingers.
Yeah, so you've still got your fingers locked together and you like flex your palms out. And now
Cracking
pull
your
your
nuts.
arms directly above your head and stretch up. And now try pull them apart. You'll still be able to do it, but there's like a little bit of resistance there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
So what you do is you get people to sort of put their hands up above their head with their fingers interlocked. You get them all sort of relaxed and super focused. And then you start like spitting this tale about how their hands are stuck together with glue, with the strongest glue that they can imagine. You go on for like a minute about how their hands are stuck together. You get this imagery really in their head, and then you be like, then you say, stretch your arms up and test it. Importantly, you don't say separate them, because as soon as you put the word separate in there, then that's kind of been suggested to them, and their brain's like, oh, I can separate. But when you say test it, they'll feel that slight resistance because you've made them push up.
Yeah.
And they'll go, oh shit, my hands are stuck together. This is working. And then you go, now take a deep breath, relax, and pull them apart. You'll feel the glue dissolve. And as they relax, their arms will come down. They'll be able to separate their hands, and then their brain will have been tricked because it'll be in this state of going, oh, I was able to pull my hands apart because I'm under the power of this hypnotist's voice.
Yeah.
And then they've bought into it more. Right. And so like this is still like it's a real thing, but you've definitely led the brain down this pathway, right? And it can get people to do some quite profound things. Like, like I said, it's used in stage hypnosis. We've all seen, the Darren Brown videos where he gets people to do some like crazy stuff. And if they fall into that, like 10 to 15%, and like the videos will be like, he probably does heaps that don't work, and he just publishes the ones that do work really well, because there is a small set of the population that it does. And like in stage shows and stuff, the magician normally runs some like preliminary things like that hand task, on the audience. And then he picks his person like that he's going to demonstrate with based on how well they
cheeky.
respond to these like
Little
preliminary
qualifying
tests.
rounds. He's sussing
Yeah,
it out.
exactly.
That's a bit naughty. I like that.
Yeah, and that's how magicians and stage people like tend to get people more often than not that it does work on. And then you can get them into this state. And so there are like there is some studies that like suggest that between this group of people that are highly hypnotizable and like the rest of the population, there are some anatomical differences in different parts of the brain, such as the rostrum, which is a part of the brain that's like responsible for like attention and stuff. But essentially it's because of this thing called top-down processing. So
Top-down processing.
yeah, there's two processing of the senses, right? And like sensation and perception is a two-way street. So our experience of the world around us is first of all, it's bottom up, which is what you would normally think about as, you know, the way you interact with the world. It's the direct information from the senses, like coming in free from bias, free from any preconceived notions. So like, for example, right, like my eyes right now are looking directly in front of me on my desk. I have a coffee cup. And photons are bouncing off that coffee cup in front of me, reaching my eye where they're turned into a pattern and sent to my primary visual cortex, right? There, you know, the rough shape of the cup is recognized, and then the signal is sent to another part of the brain, which like we refer to as a higher part of the brain, just in terms of function, you know, where I might recognize the color and, you know, and it's processed directly in this like directional manner.
So it's
directly
called
from the
bottom up
stimulus.
because it's kind of how we've categorized brain function from lower to higher function, higher being more kind of cognizant, deeper thought kind of patterns, and lower functions being your more basic, you know, lizard brain kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So like you're, you know,
from
the
recognizing
raw
shapes
material,
to recognizing that shape as a cup, and then being like, okay, what is that cup used for?
Exactly.
What color is that
like,
cup? What
you know,
memories and feelings do I have associated with this
like
cup?
when I look at this cup, I think of Millie, which like, because it was a gift from Millie. It's my little, you know, Carragini National Park cup. Shout out Millie if you're listening to this. And I think of like coffee and being awake, and, you know, whereas if I had like was an alien or something, you know, I would look at that and I would see a weird little green shape that kind of is a scoop. Maybe it would hold something, but I'm not sure what. Like I don't have these associations with it. And so, like, you know, think of someone like a pilot, or sorry, a non-pilot, like walking into the cockpit of a plane and seeing all these buttons and having absolutely no sort of comprehension of what they're seeing. And so in order to have this comprehension of the world around us and what we're seeing, we have this thing called top-down processing. So there's actually like, while there's a bunch of nerves running from these like primary sensory organs like to the brain, there's actually a whole bunch running in the other direction as well.
Okay.
And so our preconceived notions and understanding and context of things help like alter how we see something. So like I obviously see that as a coffee cup instead of like a thing that I'm going to use to scoop sand, even though it would be perfectly functional as a sand scoop, like if I wanted it to be, right? So a really good example of this is a study I think I told you about, because I remember learning about it in undergrad and being like, what? And then I definitely came home and told you guys about it. But the wine experiment, where they got the same bottle of wine and they told like this group of people that were sitting down to have dinner, they brought out like 2 bottles of wine, but it was actually the same wine twice, told them one was like a really expensive bottle of wine and told them the other one was like a really cheap bottle of wine. And like not only did they in like self-record like rate the more expensive quote unquote wine as tasting better, when they did scans of their brain, they actually registered, like the pleasure part of their brain, like lit up more. They registered it as being a more enjoyable wine because they believed it was worth more money.
So it wasn't actually a case of just
actually
pretending and kind of like a social camouflage to try and fit in and be like better.
It legit
They
tasted
literally
different to them. Yeah.
So
and
even though
they
it was the
enjoyed
same
more.
wine,
Same wine.
just because they labeled it, was literally a more enjoyable wine.
Exactly.
It was the same wine,
Exactly
but it
the
was
same wine.
objectively a more enjoyable wine because of
the perception, like the going from the taste sense to the brain part, the top-down processing, their expectations of the wine actually altered their perception of the wine and how they experienced it.
That is
like
crazy.
in
That is
functional imaging
really
brain
crazy.
scans.
That is really crazy how physical that is.
And like
I guess that makes sense because everything we experience is through our brains. So any kind of sensation and then our perceptions and our enjoyment has a physical response that lines up in the brain.
And that's exactly how like optical illusions work. It's the same thing with vision. Like, you know, that one where you can see as an old lady or a young lady, depending on like, what you're expecting to see, or the one that's like a duck.
Is it a crater or is it a
duck
mountain?
and a rabbit? Yeah, like, and like, you know, that's how these things work, is because we're able to alter, or the dancer that spins left or spins right, and like, you know, they sell it as, are you left brain or right brain? But it's actually
but that's not how that works.
You know, I can sit there and if I think about it hard enough, I can, you know, change it. And anyone, if they sat there and thought about it hard enough, they could change it because it's.
Have you ever tried to do it where you look at it and try and see both at once?
No.
It's,
That would be
it's,
trippy though.
It's
I should do
trippy. It's
that.
really trippy. I've done it with more kind of like, when you see a drawing of a cube on a 2D piece of paper, but they haven't
yeah.
cropped the lines out. So if you can look at it one way and it looks like
Yeah,
the cube is facing one way, you
indented
look
or
at it.
outdented.
You can do it where you could
concave
looks
or
like
convex. Yeah.
you can see the cube as like both at once. It's really trippy. It's not even that. It's more sort of like a rapid switch between the two. Or like if the left side of it looks like it's concave, but the right side looks like it's convex. I don't know. It's hard to describe, but
yeah.
it's a fun one if you really want to trip yourself out, like going mentally cross-eyed.
Oh yeah. Well, see, like there's so many examples of this, and we already like know that it's a thing, and like it extends beyond just our primary senses, right? So like I mentioned pain before, and them using like hypnotism to work to make people feel less pain and in surgeries and stuff, and like I'm not sure whether hypnosis actually works via the same mechanism. I don't think it does, but like the body already does have like an inbuilt top-down pain system. Like we can make opioids in our body that block the sense of pain like at its location. So like for example, if you're like running away from a wolf, I don't know why we're running away from a wolf in this scenario, but we are, and you trip over, you break your leg, you will be able to get back up and keep running the fuck away from that wolf until you're in a safer situation. And then your leg's going to start to hurt like a motherfucker. But like people in war and stuff, like they'll experience this injury and then they'll get the hell out of Dodge. And because the brain and the body will be numbing this pain until you're in, like it's an evolutionarily advantageous thing, obviously, to like wait till you're in a safer situation to deal with the broken limb or whatever the injury may be.
Was it the hierarchy of needs?
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. The human body, man, it's just like, it's fucking crazy.
It's literally mind over matter. That's insane.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I mean, and that's how the placebo effect works as well. It's like if the top is convinced, then the bottom will be overruled.
It's interesting. That concept to me kind of gives a little bit more credence to these films that you and I quite like to shit on a lot. Things like Lucy and stuff, where it's like, well, what if the humanity unlocked 20% of their brain? Stuff like that, which objectively is awful because, like, we always use 100%
we use
of our
all
brain.
of our brain all of the time.
I know.
Oh my
God. And I'm not agreeing with that. That's bullshit. The official stance of this podcast is that is bullshit.
Cool,
but
good.
What I think it does give
for a second.
credit to is the idea of the power of the human brain, because obviously they take it fucking like way too far, and when she gets to 80% or whatever, she can use telekinesis and stuff, but the idea of what our brain can actually do, and it's fun to toy with the theoretical notion of if we had more conscious control over what our brain can do, we do have some of these quote unquote semi-superhuman abilities. And you think about bloody gurus and stuff who like meditate for ages and can endure these like ice cold conditions or not eat for years and do these things that would kill most people, but they have such good control over their brains and have an understanding of how the brain can affect the body in a very real and physical way.
Yeah, for sure. Like it definitely, like it, I wish that I was part of this like highly hypnotizable group of people, because to me, you're right, like it does. When I was first like hearing about this stuff, I'm like, it feels like a superpower. Because like, okay, so one of the like other studies that I saw that they did, they got people that were highly hypnotizable, they hypnotized them, got them to look at this like black and white, well, scale of gray shade abstract image, and hypnotized them and told them to add color to it. And they reported seeing color in this black and white image. And more than that, the part of their brain involved in processing color actually lit up under functional MRI. So they were actually seeing color. Like they were literally, their
even
brain.
If they weren't seeing color, even if their eyes weren't receiving photons of the wavelength of this actual color, their brains were projecting to their conscious mind color.
Yeah.
That is oof.
Yeah.
That is oof.
And another good one. This one's like my favorite one, I think. So have you heard of the Stroop test?
I have not.
Okay, so you'll probably recognize once I explain it. It's that test that you do where you look at a word and that word will be like the word of a color, say red will be the word, but the word
Yeah.
red will be green.
Oh,
And you
yeah,
have to
and you
say
have to
the
say-
color that it is, not what it says. So you have to say
Yeah.
green even though you're looking at the word red.
Yes, no, I've
And
I've
it's
done that one
really, really,
before.
really hard to do. As a kid, I made it because this is the sort of like pretentious bitch I am. I made it my task to get good at this because everyone was like, it's
Okay.
impossible to do. It's this whole look at this fancy illusion. You can't do it. And I'm like, fucking watch me. So I figured out that if I took my glasses off and like blurred my eyes and blurred the word, I couldn't read what the word said and I just saw the color. And so that became my party trick for a
Cheeky.
bit, was just like showing people that I could do the Stroop test really well because oh my God. Yeah. But like there's some logic to that, right? Because if you
Yeah.
can no longer comprehend what the word is saying, the next thing that your brain is going to register is the color. So they did
Yeah.
this. So they did this wacky thing. So they gave people the Stroop test while they're in an fMRI machine, and then they hypnotized these people. Once again, these are part of the highly hypnotizable population
Yeah.
of people. They hypnotized these people, and they told them that the words that they were about to read were gibberish.
Okay.
And so what they did is they then did the Stroop test, and they fucking nailed it because they weren't, and beyond that, because they were in an fMRI machine, the part of the brain responsible for like language comprehension lit up in the original one, because obviously they're reading the word, didn't light up when they were hypnotized because they could not comprehend the words. It was literally, they lost the ability to understand any of those words and like just saw them as though they were written in a different language, pretty much.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
That is really freaking cool.
Yeah.
Ah, man.
All right, I've got one more study, one more
Okay,
exciting
please.
study.
Yeah.
So they got a bunch of people, showed them a film,
Okay.
showed them a movie. Then a week later, they got these people in. Once again, part of this 10 to 15%. I feel like I need to keep making this like disclaimer. These are the highly hypnotizable people. Like you can't do this to
They didn't just get
everyone.
any Tom, Dick, or Harry from the street.
I think they got non-hypnotizable people as a control as well.
Yeah, okay.
In most of these studies, but I'm just reporting the exciting stuff, which is what happened to the hypnotizable people.
Yeah.
So a week later, they brought them in and they told them, like they hypnotized them and said, like, you're going to forget everything about the film that you watched a week ago. And then the control group, well, yeah, people that couldn't be hypnotized underwent the hypnosis process. They did all these tests to decide which group these people fell into, but that's not important. Anyway. Then both groups took a test on like the contents of the film, like, you know, plot point, you know, like a quiz. And those that were given the cue to forget the film, who had been hypnotized, got given the cue to forget the film, like fucking flunked the test, like had no idea, had no memory. So hypothetically, okay, so I don't know, have you, like, no spoilers for any of our listeners, but like, have you watched the last few episodes of The Good Place yet?
I have. I watched it like a couple of days ago and I have many emotions.
Oh my God. Same. So many thoughts, so many emotions. Not about to discuss them. But would you agree with the statement that The Good Place is probably one of the like TV shows that has pulled off twists the best of like any TV show we've had for a good long time?
They
It's just
have
like twist after
executed them
twist after twist.
fantastically, and even if you're expecting them, I personally couldn't pick any of the ones that
Yeah.
came
So
along.
what I was going to say, so like you can rewatch the series now, right? And you're expecting the twist and it's still going to be good. But hypothetically, what if you could hypnotize yourself so that you could rewatch The Good Place, and every time you rewatched it, you got to re-experience those twists for the very first time over and over and over again?
That would be
That is
beautiful.
hypothetically possible if you fall into this group of highly hypnotizable people.
Oh man, that'd be so cool.
It's like a superpower, right? Like it would improve life in so many ways. Like, I mean, not to mention all the medical uses. Like, you know, if you're addicted, people use it if they're addicted to smoking. You know, you can be hypnotized to stop smoking, and you can hit like all these sorts of things. And you know, of course, it doesn't work in everyone.
whatever. I mean, yeah, we can break people out
but-
of their crippling addictions later. I want to
I just wanna
re-enjoy all my
watch The Good
TV
Place.
shows. I've got my priorities, mate. All
Right? Is that
Ah.
not the coolest thing? And so what they think is like there's sort of two parts to it. Like the first part is getting people into this like trance like state, which is where, you know, the brain waves change and you're super attentive and you've got this like hyper focused attention. Almost like, so I actually looked into this because I don't know if you know, but there's a whole group of class of medications, like especially for people with ADHD, or some that are even like marketed as like smart drugs or whatever, that heightens people's focus and ability to focus. And I was reading in whether like some of these drugs would make it easier for someone to get hypnotized, because first you need to be in this like highly, you know, they call it like the flow state, where like, you know, where you get so absorbed in a book that the rest of the world around you dissolves, or you get so absorbed in what you're doing. Like, you know, most of us have probably experienced that, where you're just so focused on something that everything else melts away. And it turns out drugs like modafinil or like Ritalin, like in some people, dexamphetamines, like they can increase your susceptibility to being hypnotized. Because it seems like a really, really key part is getting the person into this super focused state. And what you want them to be focused on is obviously like the hypnotist's voice. Once they're like super, super focused on what the hypnotist is feeding them, then the hypnotist just has to feed them the exact right set of things, which is like, first of all, about the suggestibility, convincing them that they're actually hypnotized so they buy into it further. And then they can start feeding them this like these suggestible phrases and stuff, and that is then the brain uses that as the top level of functioning, and that top level of functioning that's come directly from this suggestibility is then what feeds down to the rest of the brain and alters your perception and can make people see colors or read words as gibberish, or...
And that's the top down processing.
Yeah, and that's the top down processing, and it's just like... It's just like creating such a formidable top-down processing force that like the suggestions coming from the hypnotist just overcome reality, essentially. And that's what hypnotism is, and it's a fucking real thing.
And I guess that's what meditation is, and people who can like really get into like meditation and put themselves and their bodies. It's like self-hypnosis.
Mindfulness, and like there's a lot of link, and like this is kind of there's zero science behind this. This is where we're getting a bit into like the pseudoscience realm, but you know there's claims that listening to music played at certain frequencies will heighten your focus, so you should listen to it while you study. Funnily enough, I do listen to that shit while I study, and I think it does help me focus, but I think that's possibly placebo, or just like it's a, you know, lack of lyrics to distract me.
But even if it is a placebo, that probably is literally changing in your brain.
And
exactly.
Is actually this is what's making me
focus.
think, right? I'm like, I want to do actual research on this stuff now. Like, screw my actual research. I want to research hypnotism. Oh my God, and hypnosis. And I want to, but the thing is, right, it all comes down to like, we can try and understand it as much as we want, but like... At the end of the day, it's a question of consciousness, and like, you know, we can see these effects that it's having, but until we understand what consciousness is and how that's distinct from, you know, the unconscious mind and whatever, you know, we can never fully understand these things that claim to be like altered states of consciousness and this trance-like state or whatever. We can know that it's real, and we can see that it's definitely having an effect, and that, you know, there's a bell shape in the population of people that it affects. But we can't.
We'll never know what the why is for sure until we know what consciousness is.
Like,
until we know what consciousness is.
Yeah, exactly. Which like has been stumping neuroscientists and philosophers for, you know, millennia, and probably still will,
zonks
to be
and
honest.
yonks and tonks.
Zonks and yonks and tonks indeed. But essentially, like that is what hypnosis is. Yeah, is it's changing your, you know, reality. It's changing your expectations of what you are experiencing, and thereby actually changing what you're experiencing.
That is really freaking fucking awesome. That's wow. No, that's super
like, you know,
mind-blowing.
and it's not even like, oh my God, it's not mind control, and it's not going to be used for evil or whatever, because like you can't hypnotize someone to do something that they don't want to do.
You can't make them do anything they don't consent to.
Our innate survival instincts will be able to overcome this like suggestibility trance-like state, right? So like you're never going to be in any danger if you're getting hypnotized. Like you will be able to override that, and you will like be fine. But if you can allow yourself, it is possible to alter that, which is like Whoa.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
I would really love to know
I want to
what happens in the
experience
future
it,
is
but
more.
I don't think.
To me, it seems like a much cooler version of like magic eye puzzles. I've
Yeah.
never been able to experience a magic eye puzzle in my damn life, but
Well, that's
people
because
reckon
of your
it's a thing.
eyes. No, that's because of
True.
your eyes. I could go into the science behind that and the vision
That's
science.
another thing.
That's another, the whole nother episode though. Yeah.
But theoretically, it is something that even though you and I are naturally less susceptible to experience, could experience through mindfulness meditation, potentially, like if we were
I'm
ever a
gonna
part of
work
drug
my
trials or something,
butt off.
if
to
we were
learn how
fortunate
to do
enough to be a
this.
part of this research where, see
tried-
how different things
yeah.
alter it. So there's hope for us yet, There's hope for us yet. We may not have been born with it. Maybe it's Maybelline, but we could make it happen.
I certainly fucking hope so because oh my god, what a superpower!
No, that was a really cool topic.
Yeah,
that was a
I
really
thought
cool
so.
topic.
I got really into it, and if you want to know more, just like there's so many YouTube videos like and crazy stuff
Well,
out there. You can get lost.
For this
learning.
episode in particular, I reckon we'll be linking a couple of the YouTube videos and documentaries that
I've got a
watched
whole long
in our
list of
description.
links.
So you'll be
for
able to
sure.
see for yourself some of the sources that Kate looked through to
Yeah.
find this absolutely mind-boggling info.
We should now shuffle on along to our listener question.
Oh yes, who's it from today?
So today we have a question from Mel, and Mel wants to know why coffee, or specifically when you have too much coffee, why does that give you the jitters?
The jitters.
Yeah.
No
so
such thing
like,
as too much coffee. This is
well, see, that's an interesting point, right? Because
maybe
for
my third one for the day.
some people can drink like 12 cups of coffee a day and then fall asleep 10 minutes later, right? And some people drink 1 cup of coffee and they feel like they're gonna die. And like some of that is definitely tolerance built up from how much you've drunk, but like there are actually like genetic differences in the body that change how the body metabolizes caffeine, so like breaks it up
Okay.
into its inactive bits. And like interestingly, smoking, fun fact, if you're a smoker, that's going to actually increase your ability to metabolize caffeine. So like people who smoke tend to feel the effects of caffeine less and then drink more coffee. And yeah, so like anyway, that totally that doesn't answer Mel's question at all. I just went on a caffeine
But could that,
tangent.
if there's a genetic component, that could explain why our whole family are such avid coffee drinkers and
Yeah, we
drink,
probably
4 or
metabolize
5
coffee.
cups of coffee a day like it's no big thing.
Definitely.
Whereas some people,
Yeah.
have half a shot of espresso and are like, oh no, that's too much. I need to, like, I've got a massive headache now and I'm feeling really anxious and stuff
But
like
it's
that.
also because we've been drinking, or for me anyway, I've been drinking a lot of coffee for a long time, and
True, we've probably built up a tolerance.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, okay.
But
No, fair.
anyway, but why does it give you the jitters? Or like, because I could definitely still overdo it. I'm not one of those people that has never experienced overdoing coffee. I can overdo
true.
caffeine. I can do that, and it is not a fun feeling. And the jitters
No.
where you like shake and so all of this, it comes down to how does coffee work? Coffee is what is called an adenosine receptor. Well, not coffee, sorry, caffeine. The active constituent in coffee, as you probably are all aware, is caffeine. So
Yes.
caffeine is an adenosine receptor antagonist. So what this means is that at these little
Those are words.
receptors, yeah, I'm about to explain. Just like patience, mate. Just like patience, right?
I can't, man. The caffeine's got me going. I need to know now.
All right, well. Oh, sorry about the clap, team.
I'll tell you.
So the caffeine molecules, they bind to these little things that pop out from cells, which are called receptors, which cause the action, right? So caffeine blocks the ability of adenosine to bind to its own receptor. And when adenosine binds to its receptor, you get the sleepiness signal. That's when your brain's like, oh shit, I'm out of energy, I'm tired, I'm sleepy, and whatever, and So by having caffeine, you're not actually like giving yourself any actual energy. You're just masking the I am exhausted signal.
Right. Because I suppose if you're giving yourself actual energy, that would need to be calories, because calories
exactly,
are
'cause you
energy.
would
Calories
need
are
to-
a unit of energy. So
Exactly.
substance, food, stuff like that, sugar. You get jittery from
Yeah.
that, right? Because that's really high calorie. It's really high energy.
So yeah, exactly. So coffee doesn't provide you any calories. Like if you had a black coffee, you don't get calories.
You can
from
fast
it.
while drinking black coffee.
Yeah, but it masks the signal that you're tired and need to like fucking stop.
So it's not energy provider, it's just anti-tired.
It's just anti-tired. But if you overdo the anti-tired, so like what it does when you block this signal, because the way adenosine works, it promotes an excess of what's called GABA, which is the body's main inhibitory neurotransmitter. So adenosine binds, whole lot of stuff happens, all the GABA in the body goes up, everything in the central nervous system slows down. When this adenosine is blocked by the caffeine, the opposite thing happens, and it's a central nervous system stimulant, and you don't have the inhibitory neurotransmitter anymore. So it's inhibiting the inhibition, if that makes sense. So it's not directly
Double
stimulating.
negative, making a positive.
It's not directly stimulating your nervous system, but it's stopping the thing that's stopping it.
Right.
And so your central nervous system is able to just go wild because you have like glutamate, which is your excitatory, and then you've got GABA, which is your inhibitory, and they're normally in this real good, healthy balance of excitatory and inhibitory. Stimulants are going to make it, you know, more active, and depressants are going to make it less active. And because it's a stimulant, yeah, it gets rid of this GABA, your nervous system goes crazy. The more and more you block, like if you just get rid of all the GABA, then your central nervous system is going to be going crazy, and that's why you're going to have those jitters and those shakes. It's actually very similar to the mechanism that causes like the shakes in alcohol withdrawal, actually, because alcohol fucks with your GABA system.
Right, because alcohol's a depressant, right? So when you become really dependent on that, you have like a higher influx of depressants or inhibitants in your body. So then when you cut that out, your body doesn't have the things in there to compensate for that. So then it just goes like, now I've got heaps of stimulant stuff going on.
Exactly. That's what withdrawal is. That's what alcohol withdrawal is. And that's why the symptoms, like the jittery, shaky symptoms of alcohol withdrawal are very similar to like caffeine overdose. Because they, as drugs, alcohol and caffeine work in opposite ways, kind of. Like not exactly opposite. There's a lot of differences as well. But like in that particular aspect, exactly. So that, Mel, is why caffeine or coffee can give you the jitters. But like it's really interesting. I learned some cool stuff. I'm just going to throw some fun little caffeine facts out there right now. Caffeine, like in plants, so it like, you know, you find it in we harvest it from
imagining a
plants.
caffeine implant.
No, in plants, like the trees and bushes that grow, you know. So like we harvest it from like coffee beans or tea leaves, but it's in a whole bunch of plants. And if it's there in high doses, it's actually like a natural insecticide, because insects, when they eat it, like it's toxic. In high doses, caffeine is very toxic to insects. So it's like kind of the plant's natural insecticide. But what I thought was really cool is that in low doses, it's actually like, it's not toxic, it's good, and it actually helps promote memory. Like there's a whole bunch of studies that caffeine actually helps promote memory in humans
promotes
as well.
memory in humans or in insects?
Okay, both. This is what I'm saying. So there are studies, there are actually studies that show caffeine can help promote memory in humans, but that's still a little bit up for debate. But we know that in insects, specifically in bees, pollen or like nectar from like a flower contains low doses of caffeine and actually helps the bees remember that flower so that they can come back to it.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. How cool is that? How cool is nature?
Well, that's crazy. So I was going to say, could then people want, as a cheap natural insecticide, spray their plants with coffee? But then you run the risk of, if you're not putting enough coffee on there, then you're actually providing insects with really good brain food. And
I don't know. I don't know if
really
anyone's done the like dose
thrive.
effect curve calculation. Optimized the dosage of caffeine to insect for. I mean, someone's surely done it. Probably.
Oh, probably.
Someone out there.
If it exists, someone's done it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, there you go. Well, I think we're pretty much at about our time limit for today's episode.
Definitely.
That was absolutely jam-packed with information.
Yeah, sorry for the info overload. I kind of just went down this rabbit hole of getting so excited by it all. I hope eventually, like I kind of went into this very unstructured, so I hope I eventually got my like point across by the end.
No, you did. At least from my perception, you did.
Well, that's good. That's what you're there for. You're there to keep me in check and make sure that what I say makes sense. Because a lot of the time, what I say makes no sense. So I couldn't release a podcast on my own. It would be gibberish. And also very bad audio quality. You serve two purposes. Well done, you.
Oh, thanks, B. I try to be useful where I can.
Dear. And so, if you enjoyed today's episode, awesome. We're now on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify. So if you want to give us a rating, a good rating, please, and chuck us a little cheeky review on Apple Podcasts, that'd be swell. But you can find us on any of our social medias, which is at Curiosity Rat on Twitter or Insta, or you can find Curiosity Killed the Rat on Facebook as a Facebook page. We will post every time a new episode is up. And
if you want a question answered as well, you can email us in at curiosityrat@gmail.com.
This is the most
we literally
important
just
bit.
came out of the listener question.
I know. I love the listener questions. They keep me going, and we're actually getting emails, which makes me feel like this show is real. People are actually.
Yeah, no, we love it when we receive emails from you guys because it makes us
my
feel
day.
like people are actually listening to what we're talking about,
please.
and that's always a nice little feeling in my chest.
No question is too ridiculous. Well, maybe. I'm going to regret saying that now. I'm going to get some ridiculous question that I will not be able to answer.
Challenge for you guys this week. Send us the most ridiculous science question you can think of. I want to see what y'all can come up with. I bet y'all have got some crazy brains.
Yike.
And I want them to challenge us.
All right.
Hi, Sked.
Bring
I'm Matt.
it on. Funny.
I am.
And with that, catch you next time, guys. Cheers for listening.
Hope y'all had a good time. See you later.
Curiosity. Kill the rat. Curiosity. Kill the rat.
I'm stalling because I'm trying to find where I wrote down the example. This bit can be cut. Do 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 do. Interpret. What do you look? Oh, right. Yeah, of course.